Hello and welcome to the Bald and Bloviating Podcast. I'm your bald host, Mookie Spitz, and I'm going to bloviate today about the Mookie Manifesto. I also rant on TikTok, daily videos, first person, usually shot in my kitchen, of me going off on just about any topic you can think of. Politics, culture, art, self-reflection. The videos are anywhere from about 1.5 minutes to maybe max 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. Point of view, selfie videos. I literally just get an idea in my head. I hit record, I extend my arm, and I watch myself yell at myself. Save the video. Sometimes I might speed it up. 1.2, 1.4, 1.5 speed. And then I'll caption it. And I'll upload it, as I mentioned, to TikTok. Same video goes usually on Instagram if they don't block me. They tend to block me probably because my engagement is not high enough to warrant their bandwidth. YouTube, Substack, Patreon. Overall, the process for a video from initial idea, usually they're a single take, maximum 2 or 3. So the actual recording of the video might take, 5 minutes on average. Seriously, maximum 10. Captioning takes the most time. I need to go through each line, make sure that the AI doesn't garble the words or get grammar wrong. I'll select an appropriate font. And the uploading process takes maybe, all told across all these platforms, 15 minutes. So it's roughly a half hour per video. Sometimes I'll do 2, 3, 4. There's been mornings, afternoons where I'm just in a video ranting kind of mood and I'll just let them out. So why do I bring all this up? Well, first off, follow me on TikTok. I am Mookie Writer, not the best handle. It was picked when I was just blogging and TikTok was just an experiment. I started doing these daily videos back in December, about the end of 2024, so it's only been about 8 months. I probably have 1,000 videos, not kidding, covering all these topics. I think I've gotten better. I've kind of settled into this mode. I should probably branch out, do some more creative stuff. During this time, I've acquired about 15,400 followers, which is not bad for just me ranting in my kitchen. About 250,000 likes, thousands of comments, less successful on the other platforms. That's taught me quite a bit. Same exact videos, same exact setup, same exact descriptions and hashtags. Doing well on TikTok, awful on Instagram. I've literally lost followers. YouTube is picking up a little bit of steam, although they're interestingly selective about certain types of content. I think they do some filtering to prevent too much noise and garbage, ostensibly, on YouTube. And Substack, no one pays any attention. And Patreon, I've hardly grown my membership there either. Probably all of this, not because my content isn't good, but 2 reasons. One, it's super crowded out there. Who has time for anyone, let alone me? And I'm not being self-deprecating. I'm just illustrating how it is in 2025. And the other factor is I'm not paying. I have not paid a penny for any of this reach or engagement. Back in the day when I was starting out in digital marketing, the idea of earned media was a big deal. You could set up a platform, which we called owned media, like your own website, what have you, your own portal. And then you would earn media by building up a social following through community. And if you were distinctive and you had a voice, it was feasible to do this without really pumping paid media, paying ads to drive it. Although an ideal combination was exactly that, a combination of all these things. You did a multimedia campaign, a combination of earned, owned, and paid content. Bravo. Well, I have ranted in other pods here and on my other pod shows about the wall. 483 exabytes of content last I checked daily. That's 483 billion gigabytes of digital content are released daily out into the world. That's an awful lot of gigs. And it's an awful lot for people to sort through, find what they're looking for. So I describe it as the wall. And if you're a content creator, you scratch at the wall, you try to climb over it, break through it to get the reach and attention so people simply can engage with you. You get noticed. It's always difficult to get noticed. It's always crowded out there. Now it's more difficult than ever. And unless you have a big marketing budget, you will be lost in the storm, so to speak. Now, don't get me wrong. I've had a few viral sensations, at least on TikTok. I had one video about Middle East peace that I believe is clocking in at 600,000 views. Imagine that, me in my kitchen. No advertising, just went air quote viral. Another one about immigration and immigration policy is about 500,000, might be about 600,000. And I would say about a dozen videos out of the nearly 1,000 that I mentioned, about 1% of my videos have gone viral to the point of 10, 20, 30, 60,000, 120,000, 500,000 views with no advertising. And again, I could pat myself on the back, but as I usually like to cite, a kid setting his farts on fire can garnish 100 times that engagement with no effort. So it is a free-for-all. It makes no sense except for the sense that people like fart jokes. They like celebrity gossip, and people like what they like. They're their own selective mechanism, but we are, at the end of every social media content creator influencer day, subject to the algorithms. When I post something on social media, it decides who sees. Now, you can argue that if I would gear my content for the algorithms to be more selective for my content, arguably in alignment with the users and what they're hungry for, which ostensibly is how the algorithms are programmed, then I would be doing better. I agree, 100%. In other rants that I've done, and other blog posts, and implicit in my books, is the feeling that we communicate because we have a need to communicate. And I'm the type of artist who pleases himself first. And the audience is secondary, tertiary, sometimes not even on my mind. I just have a compulsion to, in this case here, as an example, bloviate. I just like releasing content. I feel good when I do this. I feel even better after I've done it, and then I'm just hungry for more. That's how I am. That's how I'm wired. That's who I am. And I've discovered relatively late in life that this is such a wonderful catharsis for me on a daily basis. And I've made epic sacrifices in my own life to facilitate and encourage this happening. There are opportunity costs for this in lieu of everything I've been talking about for the last 8 minutes, which is the wall, which is the difficulty getting reach and engagement, and as a result, difficulty getting organically monetized. Okay, now this setup leads me to, I'm going to get to it. Thank you for your patience. I know you can't wait. Get to how folks are reacting to some of these rants. Now, what's been particularly fascinating to me is, on the surface, the obvious. Most people are swiping so fast that they will watch the first 2, 3, 5, maximum 10, 15 seconds of my rants and then do one of two things. Either they'll engage with it in the form of favoriting it. They liked it and they put it as one of their favorites. They save it to their archive of favorites. And I can see that. I can see all these actions on my side in my profile. They could like it. In TikTok, you can do that. There's a little heart and you put a little heart. They could follow me as a result of seeing this. Like, yeah, bro, I agree with you. Great. We're in the same league. We're on the same team. I'm interested in seeing more of your stuff. And I'm going to add you to my tribe, my social media tribe or network. And then they follow me. They could even go so far as making a comment. And many people who don't like, don't favorite, don't share. You can do that too. Don't follow me will comment. And the comments are usually pro-con, and they're usually con. So leaving mean comments is an American pastime. People spend a big part of their day shitting on other people's stuff online. And I know that to be true. And in ways I welcome it. I have kind of a beat me, bore me, don't ignore me mentality here. When you're so relatively ignored, if anyone pays attention, even if someone who ostensibly hates you, you're like, oh, wow, hey, hi, go ahead, leave a mean comment. That all said, these mean comments are evocative of the realization that, as I mentioned, they're only watching 5, 10, 15 seconds. So many times they're reacting to simply my introduction to a topic, to a societal challenge, to a point of view. And often when you orate, you set things up in a way where the point you're going to get to is often even the opposite of what seems to be your tone and point of view at the beginning, because you're building dramatic tension, you're setting it up. But this idea of actually crafting a self-contained, contiguous whole story, even if it's concisely told, even if it's well told, is anathema to the social media reality of a second being an eternity. So people will see you and listen to you for a fraction of your message and instantly react positively or negatively, which encourages a lot of people way more successful than me on social media who do it way better than me, at least in terms of their own reach and engagement, to not only get to the point instantly, but do so in a way that garnishes attention and captures the essence of everything that they want to say, everything that they believe. And the rest is just elaboration and reinforcement. Now, since most topics are nuanced, I'm getting to my point. Trust me. Thank you for being patient on this podcast, unlike most people on TikTok. What that leads me toward is the belief and my own practice that nuance is the essence of what Socrates called the elenchus, which is debating, which is looking someone in the eye, which is smelling them, seeing them, watching how they react, watching how they speak and enunciate, watching their opinions come to life, and then duking it out through logic, through argument, through some kind of proof. You express an opinion, you get a counter opinion, you duke it out. Okay, classic debate style. None of that is happening on these platforms meaningfully. It is a shit show of tribalism, of polarized, I don't even want to call it discourse. And basically, it's just everyone pulling their pants down and taking an enormous dump on each other to validate their own tribe and its belief system. That is 99% of the engagement on all of these platforms. Now, granted, I'm expressing myself through the vantage point of someone who hasn't really built community. And I know that there's lots of influencers way more successful than me at this point who have built tens of thousands of people who are in their community. And when you create your own tribe within a tribe, and then you apply these mechanisms of digital communication technology, the liking, the commenting, the favoriting, the sharing, the following. In a dynamic environment, you're going to get some lively conversation. And there is actually some of that in my mini faux communities. But unless you crack that code, unless you break through that wall to create your own community within a community, tribe within a tribe, it's going to be this mess. Now, I bring all this up because as a result of this, I am, as Nietzsche referred to himself, misunderstood. And by this, I mean, I have folks who are on the MAGA, what ostensibly we'd call right-wing side of the American political spectrum, who think I'm a raging leftist. Like Bernie Sanders is Benito Mussolini in comparison. And then on the other side, I have these same kind of progressive liberals who think I am the biggest Trumpista MAGA maniac. And the reason for this, again, is that folks are not listening. Folks are either unwilling or unable to appreciate any kind of nuance. And they immediately leap to knee-jerk reactive conclusions based on my demeanor, my tone of voice, my vocabulary, my apparent position on any one of a number of issues, and then see it through their own lens, their own tribal lens, and label me raging lefty commie hippie or MAGA maniac fascist. And there's nothing in between. And these are 95% of all the comments that I get and all the feedback that I've received. 1,000 videos, 8 months of ranting in my kitchen, 15,000 followers, 250,000 likes, etc. Now, I believe this is a fair microcosm of the cluster that is social media. And it's exemplified by vividly not only our fractured society, but some of its causes, including social media. So the cat chases its tail. Nothing new here. None of this should in any way be revelatory. But the reason I've had this now 15 plus minute opening to this podcast is this puts me in a position where most people who interact with me, whether it's for 2 seconds until they hate me and swipe away, or 15 seconds where they hate me and leave a mean comment, most people don't understand my point of view. Most people, I'd venture to assume, don't really have what could be considered a point of view, except for the willingness or enthusiasm to regurgitate tribal doctrine from the left, from the right. And this goes beyond ethnicity, location in the country, even education, because I personally know and have friended and colleagued with individuals on both sides of this polarized political spectrum, dwelling deep within either tribe, who are highly educated, highly professional, and their biases scream to me. I'm sometimes flabbergasted by what these folks say and even do sometimes from this vantage point of deep, deep polarization, to the point where, given the complexities of issues which are often interwoven with each other, it becomes patently absurd to cling to the complete portfolio of nonsense that either party clings to. It's not ideological. I can't even call it ideological because it's inconsistent. It makes no overtly logical sense. And most significantly, there aren't even common themes or roots that tie all of these otherwise disparate and dissonant ideas together. It's ad hoc, it's cobbled together. It often keeps changing based on the news cycle and elections. And what I'm trying to say is the obvious, that human beings are motivated by emotion and their heart first. And the brain is just a tool, a vehicle for bringing that to light. Now, there is something called critical thinking. And the humanities education that so many colleges ostensibly try to provide is designed to focus that skill of the elenchus, which is put your biases aside for a second, get as much information as you can, and apply a logic rather than pure passion to this argument, to this situation, to this challenge, to this topic that we are debating, discussing, or screaming at each other about. Now, when people don't understand me because of all this, I get put into these camps. And here's a newer challenge that I'm facing. I'm approaching people to be guests on my podcast, and I'm actually getting folks interested in being on my podcast. And these are people I don't know. When I started podcasting, I reached out to friends and family, and people, even in our intimate circles, do interesting things. My niece is an acupuncturist. Boom, she was the second guest on one of my shows. I have another very dear friend who is involved in the medical assistance, medical aid in dying phenomena for her own personal reasons. Boom, she was a guest. I've had colleagues who are experts in brand identity, experts in government regulation. So I've been peppering my podcast with guests of people within my inner circle, bringing it to light, having a great time. They appreciated it. They got some mileage with their own careers, their own ideas. And I got a great podcast guest, and I honed my skills. Awesome. But now I'm at the point where I have enough of these out there, even though I don't pay for advertising, that the bots are noticing. The AI is scraping up my content. Then PR firms are buying this content. And I'm getting emails from bots or PR firms. And they're like, we saw your interview with Mookie Spitz where you talked about blah, blah, blah. And I can instantly tell that it's a bot, that it's AI scraping this stuff generically, because I usually don't interview myself. But that notwithstanding, one great aspect of AI, and I bring this up in the Wall series of podcasts, is that the future of this mess, the way we're all going to be able to knock on, climb over, and break through the wall, either as a content creator, as a consumer, even as a passive recipient of content online, is for AI to connect the right content with the right audience. But we're way far from that still. Anyway, we're starting to crack that a little bit, and I'm getting solicitation from people who represent people who want podcast coverage. And these folks are now reaching out to me, and I'm reaching back to them, and I'll interview anybody pretty much, partly because I'm still relatively unknown, but mostly because I love differing points of view. And I am not biased in the sense, and this is the point of my rant here, and I'm going to get to this in detail in a second, I'm not polarized in my political attitudes and opinions. And I feel I'm nuanced and holistic in my view of the world. So more people to interview is more information and more debate. So if someone is even fairly reasonable and is fairly articulate, then bring it on. I would love to talk to anyone. I'd love to talk to you. In the podcast description, you could reach directly out to me, contact the host. Go ahead, do it. I'll put you on. Now, all this said, the problem I've been having, which is an interesting one, is people are having a hard time figuring out which tribe I belong to. And when I say I'm not really part of a tribe, they don't quite get it. They want to put me in a tribe. And I haven't had an opportunity to talk about my own personal points of view, my Mookie Manifesto. So that's what I want to do here for all these reasons. What do I believe in? Whom do I support? What kind of world do I think we should be driving toward? And how does it relate to all my bloviation and writing and sharing and creating? And I think this is a fair question. Because if you just scan my podcasts and my blogs, and I've pumped my blogs and my books into ChatGPT as projects, so the LLMs have already eaten my stuff up, not that they wouldn't have anyway. And even when I run queries or prompts on projects explicitly containing my content, I've come to the realization that I've covered so many different points of view in so many ways that I'm either schizophrenic or I have some implicit beliefs which would never become self-evident unless you really exerted a lot of time and energy to find them. So here I am, about a half hour in, and I'm ready to let them loose. Now, I'm improvising now, as I have been for the last half hour, which again is one of my favorite things to do. So if these elements of the Mookie Manifesto come across ad hoc, and I no doubt will miss some points, then so be it. But I give you the unvarnished Mookie at the expense of something that might be a little bit more deliberative and thought out and rigorous and comprehensive, with this spirit of flexibility, fluidity, honesty, transparency. So here goes. Foundationally, and I think folks who express this kind of point of view, or at least try this kind of exercise, would be behooved to start with emotion. Because I think Freud and Jung and Nietzsche and Schopenhauer, for that matter, were all right that we are just beasts and our brains are just the tool of our passions, even if we are critical thinkers. So you got to start and end with what you feel is right, what you believe in, more so than what you ostensibly know. So here's my view of the world in broad strokes. I believe that people, when they're born, have rights. And these rights are based on my belief that most aspects of who we are as people are innate, are inherent, are wired into us biochemically and even biomechanically. So the color of our skin is created by the relative melanin content within our epidermis. Therefore, whether you're white, black, in between, should be irrelevant to how society and other people treat you. Same goes for gender. If you're male, if you're female, if you're hermaphrodite, biologically, you were, as Lady Gaga sings, born that way. That means there should be no differentiation or discrimination based on that. Now, it gets complicated when you posit that there might be inherent differences within these inherent differences. Scientifically, mathematically, men tend to be physically larger than women. Fact. And when we go to melanin color in the skin as one of many variables, the kind of muscle tissue of, let's say, a Kenyan, someone born in the country of Kenya, is qualitatively and even quantitatively different than someone born in Slovakia. So we get most of our marathon runners from Kenya. Is it environmental or is it physical, biological? Usually, it's a combination of the two. And this is where things get complicated. But I'm talking about the Mookie Manifesto. So whether you're white or black or in between, whether you are male or female or in between, you should not be discriminated against. You should have equal opportunity to excel, but we should structure society in a way that makes the most of these opportunities for you. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Now, same rules apply to sexual orientation. Whether you're gay or straight or in between, science has shown that gender and sexuality are independent variables. Gender and sexuality are independent variables. You could be male and be attracted to females or other males or in between, just as you could be female and attracted to any of the full spectrum of gender identities. And you didn't make this decision. You didn't wake up in the morning and decide as a man that you like penis. You just didn't. Do we decide that we like chocolate ice cream or vanilla? This to me is absurd and it's stupid and it's opportunistic in terms of abuse and slicing and dicing people to take advantage of them. So let me summarize the first component of the Mookie Manifesto with the caveats that I've been hinting at, that it can get complicated, but the essence should be believed in. And when I say should be believed in, I believe it's based on both science and also human empathy and compassion. We don't choose our race or how we look. We don't choose our gender, and we don't choose our sexual orientation. And I would add to that, especially this age of transphobia, the politicization of the trans folks, that you don't choose to be misaligned. So if you're biologically male and you feel like you're female, then go for it. Now, the complexity is added in terms of potentially making demands on society to acknowledge that. And that's where things can get complicated and have gotten complicated. But the foundation of the Mookie Manifesto is look, gender, and this kind of behavior, they're all innate. And they should be respected as such. And from here, a bunch of conclusions and actions and beliefs manifest. Gay marriage, of course, go for it. Transgender rights, of course, go for it. However, remember I said men are bigger than women? Scientifically. So you need common sense about trans folks in sports. Why? Because you're mixing variables, you're mixing dimensionalities of this kind of innate freedom. Common sense must prevail, and empathy and sensitivity, not only to those who've been victimized by discrimination, but to society at large, and the sensitivities and hopes of people who haven't been discriminated against. So, all right, we can call this level 1 of the Mookie Manifesto. Based on your look, gender, sexual orientation, and self-identity, you're cool. Go for it. Be all you can be. And society should, at the very most, leave you alone. And at best, offer you some protections and guardrails if you are being abused, mistreated because of these innate characteristics. Yes, it gets complicated. Yes, it gets nuanced. But what I'm finding in most of the swirling debate that takes place regarding anything having to do with these issues is a marked lack of empathy. At the core of so many arguments, which I deem unfair, biased, abusive, is the denial of the foundational Mookie Manifesto. Because if you really probe Socrates' style, folks who argue against gay marriage, let's say, who have an issue with pride parades, they don't believe that these characteristics, these behaviors are innate. And they graft onto these behaviors, these characteristics, and sometimes these appearances, belief systems that have nothing to do with that underlying reality, be it politics or most often religion. So that's the foundation of the Mookie Manifesto. Be all you can be. Society needs to structure itself to enable you to be all you can be, and to do so within certain of its own reasonable, common sense boundaries. Are there 86 genders? No, they're not. Is there fluidity between male and female? Of course, because there's overlap and there's shared characteristics. Is there a percentage of this society and every society where individuals born as a biological male feel that they're female and the other way around? Absolutely. Has there always been a percentage, and is there a percentage now of the population where someone born male is sexually attracted to other people born male? Absolutely. Common sense, folks. Empathy. I know that that's asking for a lot, but ideology and most often religion get in the way. Okay. What's level 2 of the Mookie Manifesto? There exist elements of what is traditionally considered the American Democrat ideology, policy, belief system that I embrace. Just as there are elements of the traditionally Republican, conservative ideology and policy that I embrace. Most of these have to do with that foundational level. Now, you would think, the way I express the foundational level, that it would come across as liberal, traditionally liberal. And that would be partially the case. So on the one hand, I agree that gay marriage all the way, that gay people should be allowed to adopt kids, basically be treated no different than any heterosexual couple. That's foundationally part of my belief system. But as I was mentioning, forcing people to acknowledge patent absurdities such as 86 genders, even the habit, the societal habit of he, her, she, him, to me is absurd. I know what's trying to be done here, but it's ridiculous. And placing trans athletes in sports doesn't make sense if the biology just doesn't make sense. So there's overlap. It's on a topic by topic basis. Here's another example. Do I believe in air quote Second Amendment rights? Well, my personal belief is that a heavily armed civilian population is a good thing. And the reason is deeply personal. And as such, it could be ad hoc, but I'm going with this. My parents are Holocaust survivors, and my father's biggest regret from enduring not only the Nazis and surviving them, then enduring and somehow surviving the Hungarian fascists, and then enduring and somehow surviving the invading Russians in Budapest from 1944 to 1945, his biggest regret was he had no access to arms to protect himself or his family. We are seconds away from a worldwide cataclysm, whether it's a supervolcano erupting, a black hole flying by, a nearby supernova explosion flaring, an asteroid, a comet. The world's economies could be hit. A genetic experiment, an accident, another pandemic. At the end of the day, however harsh this sounds, the last vote that you have as the citizen of any country is a bullet. And that just seems like common sense to me. And if you want to ensure that there is a true balance of power from a common sense point of view, then we should encourage a heavily armed civilian population. Because that way, nobody's got an edge. If the government is the only entity that is armed, then the government has you. And we tacitly assume that our government is democratic and free and open, and Americans are free to do more or less as they choose. That could vaporize in a nanosecond, just like it did for my father and his family in Hungary. Invasion, coup d'etat, the left, the right. I'm not pointing at sides. I'm just revealing the inherent vulnerability of civilization and society. And by making guns pretty much ubiquitous, no tribe, no side has an edge. And if really the hellfire came down, if you really want to protect your family, then that might be the only way to do it. Now, that said, do I believe in responsible gun ownership? Yes. Do I believe that you should have mandatory training for guns? Yes. And I'll use the analogy that we have mandatory training and licensing for driving a car. So you could be 16 years old in any one of a number of states, but you need to get formal training and a formal license to operate an automobile. But you could just walk into a gun seller at a gun show and buy an automatic weapon off the shelf. See, that just, again, we're in the realm of common sense. And this slippery slope idea that any kind of control on weapons automatically leads to their control, biased control, to me, again, is patently absurd. It's really the gun lobby. That's how I look at it. So here we have a blending of ideologies and beliefs. I believe, to summarize, that everyone should not only have access to arms, but more guns, the better. I really believe that. And what's missing is proper training and licensing and not gun control, but gun safety. So it's a blend. It's a blend of these things. Abortion. Now, I met this cute as a button Korean woman in Chicago, and it was a blind date. And a month later, I had an Insta family. She was pregnant, and I did not want to abort that child. Now, I personally find abortion reprehensible. I think its use as birth control is barbaric. I think that society overall has been grievously irresponsible because abortion has been this ubiquitous safety valve. You get knocked up, kill the kid. Now, do I think a fetus, a zygote, is sentient? No. But there's something awful about it that I feel. Remember, the Mookie Manifesto is grounded in feeling. So I think abortion sucks, and I think it's been abused. But just like with guns, which are abused largely because we have no safety mandate that makes any sense, abortion has been abused because our education about it has sucked. But I believe every woman has a right to do whatever she wants with her own body, just as I believe every American citizen has a right to bear arms. And just as I personally don't like to bear arms because they freak me out, because I'm a klutz and I'm nearsighted and I'm accident prone, I similarly refuse to abort the zygote that's now a 23-year-old U.S. Marine. So that's part of the Mookie Manifesto too. Abortion, ugh. Guns, freak me out. Everyone's got a right to both. So I'm crossing over. And what I'm doing here is cobbling together an issue by issue, topic by topic belief system that to me is grounded in feelings about how the world is, but also empathy and also common sense. Now, what kind of political party do I sound like? And the sad part is I don't really sound like either one of them. Let's go to the border, where it becomes even more manifest. Is a tightly controlled border a good thing? Categorically, yes. Have the Democrats blown the shot on the border? Yes. Is Trump's current border policy harsh, excessive, cruel? Yes. But do I believe that the border should be just completely opaque? No transparency. Yes. We got to control our border. It's common sense. Do we need to be cruel about it? Do we need to deport masses of people who are already here, especially if people have been here for decades working? No. No. Empathy, common sense. Look at the American population. It's going down, not up. We've needed immigration. Look at South Korea. Look at Japan. They're literally imploding. By 2060, South Korea might cease to exist. That's not an exaggeration. They have such a decline in population that unless they import 50 million people, they're going to disappear. We're not that bad, but look at the numbers. At the same time, has immigration caused problems? Yes, many of them. And I can devote an entire podcast to how we should turn immigration from an asylum issue to an HR opportunity. Create a database where American employers list jobs that they need filling. And this is everything from dishwasher to nuclear physicist. Put your request in the database, and then the U.S. Border Patrol will match, the Department of Homeland Security will match your request for a dishwasher in Idaho or a nuclear physicist in Texas to people who want to immigrate. People who are emigres wanting a better life. This is a data problem. Have AWS, Amazon fix this problem instead of organizing billions of packages on a daily basis to ensure my toilet paper arrives at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Why don't you AWS database the shit out of immigration? So it's not about building the wall, nor is it about ignoring 10, 15 million people who have illegally poured across our borders. It's about looking at this with empathy, with common sense, and applying technology. So that's a short list of the Mookie Manifesto. Here's one other element. In the battle between Madison and Hamilton, between states' rights and the federal government, I personally tend to be a Madisonian. And by this I mean these topics are so nuanced and so emotional at times that there's no real solution, that the tyranny of the majority comes at an incredible cost. So even though I believe that abortion should be an unalienable right for all women, I am nonetheless sensitive to those people who, for religious or ideological or emotional reasons, disagree with me. And I myself have trepidation and hesitation and an emotional reaction to abortion. So the idea that you can make abortion illegal in certain states, I get that. I get that. And maybe, just maybe, you can start slicing and dicing various hot topic wedge issues and let the states decide. And I know that patchwork quilt can create huge problems, not only with trade and commerce and the laws, but even everyday life. Like if gay marriage is illegal in Texas and it's legal in Massachusetts, then what if a gay married couple goes to Texas to visit? I get it. And there's a huge advantage, just as there's a huge economy of scale, literally and figuratively, for a contiguous United States of America, not only for foreign power, but for domestic growth. There's a huge advantage for a homogeneous American legal system. But there's all these hot topics where people just don't and won't agree. And they're seemingly intractable. So a corollary of the Mookie Manifesto is even when people disagree with some of my foundational assertions, I feel that for the betterment of society, they should be allowed to practice their beliefs. The gay bakery is one example, or more properly, the opposite, where a bakery was asked to create a wedding cake for a lesbian couple, and the bakery refused, and they were sued, and this percolated all the way up to the liberal Supreme Court at the time, the liberal dominant one. And now the court has shifted to a more conservative one. And now what? I don't know. Common sense. Should the government tell a bakery whom to serve? And you could cite civil rights advances and the end of slavery, and it can go on and on. But once again, empathy, common sense. And here's my next segue. I'm a strong believer in minimizing government intervention in our lives. So the bakery example, you got a bakery and you don't want to serve a lesbian couple, then you don't serve the lesbian couple. The same way you don't serve someone who's not wearing shoes or isn't wearing a shirt. And that sounds callous and goes against the foundations of the Mookie Manifesto, because I think lesbians have every right to do everything that a straight couple would do, including buying a birthday cake or a wedding cake. But again, it's common sense. It's avoiding the tyranny of the majority. And it's even going against my own fundamental Mookie Manifesto value system to empower the owners of that bakery to run the business the way they care to run it. And this is a common problem throughout all of this. One person's rights is another person's discrimination, is another person's violation, is another person's blasphemy, and round it goes. So to me, the air quote political party or ideological belief system that I can most relate to is the Libertarian Party, actually. Reason Magazine, reason.com. Do I agree with every article, every interview? No. But the general zeitgeist of these folks, I'm on it. I'm in it to win it. Why? Because they slice and dice every issue like I've been doing for the last hour within the context of this digital streaming wall. They know how hard it is to get attention. They know the power of attention. And at the same time, they understand that every issue is nuanced. And they take a common sense, not necessarily empathetic, but common sense view about slicing and dicing issues. And I like them. I like them a lot. And it goes contrary to the notion that libertarians are a bunch of 12-year-old incels sharing conspiracy memes from their mom's basement. It's just not true. Do your homework a little bit. Go to reason.com. And I just cite that publication and that website and celebrity pundits like Nick Gillespie, for example, is a guy that I really, really relate to. Do I agree with everything he says? No. I agree with maybe 90%, 95% of what he says, because oftentimes he's not even expressing a preferred policy. He's merely slicing and dicing issues that should be sliced and diced. And he's logical and he's reasonable, just like most folks involved in that publication. And frankly, like most folks in the Libertarian Party. And if the Libertarians have a challenge, it's in their messaging, their branding, their PR, because most Americans think that they're that 12-year-old incel in their mom's basement sharing conspiracy memes. They're not that. So what affiliation am I affiliated with? Well, I'm not really a libertarian per se, but I believe in smaller government is better government. I believe that individual responsibility should be paramount. I believe that the government shouldn't meddle either with someone who is considered bullied or disenfranchised, further bullying them and disenfranchising them. And at the same time, I think the government needs to have sensitivities to those who don't necessarily bully or disenfranchise those people, but who might not want to have anything to do with those people. I'm sorry, but that's just how people are. Tall walls, tall fences often make for the best neighbors. That's just true, even if it's often sad. So, how do I tie a bow on all of this? Let me summarize. If you want to know what I believe in freedom. I believe in liberty and equality, the French Revolution, the American Revolution. But I also believe it within the lens or through the lens of societal common sense. And I believe, like Nietzsche did, in a multiplicity of norms. I think that people have a right to express themselves, even if the ideas are shitty and hateful. And they have a right to believe in shitty and hateful things. And I don't think the government should intercede either way. And I think the government should get out of business and get out of people's lives and let people be. And if the government needs to help people, it should protect people. If you're a woman, you should make as much as a man in general. It should be merit-based. Enforcing that is difficult. And our schools should actually educate people. And our government should collect taxes that actually have a positive impact. And we should balance the budget. And I can go on and on. But I hope this helps. It was a long missive for such a simple list as live and let live, get the government out of our face, and let people express their opinions. And for bonus brownie points, let the free markets be free. Minimize regulation, caveat emptor, and let people deal with the consequences of their own actions, because that's how it's going to shake out anyway. And no, I'm not a Democrat. And no, I'm not a MAGA Republican. And frankly, I'm not really a libertarian either, because I often don't know what the hell they're doing, because they need leadership and they need PR and they need marketing really, really bad. But I do admire them in terms of their relative objectivity and openness and critical thinking. And if you want to be on my podcast, this is the point of view that I espouse and preach and practice. I'm here to analyze and slice and dice issues based on some of these, what I consider a priori beliefs, but they're augmented by common sense and empathy for the realization that we are a diverse group of beasts. We're animals. We are primates with these big brains. And no, we're not going to always get along. And actually, most of human interaction is a mess, and it's always going to be a mess. And the least we can do is just make it less messy by minimizing government, treating each other with respect when we can, and probably most significantly, just letting stuff play out. Just let it play out without being an overbearing ideologue, religious zealot, or perhaps even worse, government bureaucrat. So I'm eager to hear what you think. I will do my best to summarize my tenets. So if you don't have time to listen to this entire bloviation, you'll know where I'm coming from. But at the very least, this makes me feel good to get this out. I just wanted to get this off my chest because I've gotten so many comments from so many people who obviously either have no idea what I'm talking about, or my own messages have been so all over the place, or perceived to be so all over the place across the spectrum, that people, again, think I'm schizophrenic or think I'm opportunistic. Many folks think I vacillate between one opinion and another based on expedience, and that's the opposite of the truth. I say really what's on my mind in my mind's moment. And to hell with building an audience. The audience builds itself, and it'll build or it won't. And most of this has absolutely nothing to do with my content anyway. Look at the content that is popular. You think that's a standard of any kind of objective quality? Sometimes there's great stuff that's really popular. I have my own favorites, but most of it's garbage. Most of it is 483 exabytes of crap per day, and that's the wall that we all need to contend with. And the best way over that wall or through that wall is just to stop for a second and think before we knee-jerk react based upon what we think everyone else wants us to. Thanks for listening. More bald and bloviating to come. If you want to be on my podcast, send me a note. And woohoo! The mic is always hot.